Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. So today's episode is mainly going to be focused on some cool lore questions that I got in the previous videos. As always, if you have a question of your own, be sure to leave it down in the comments and I will eventually get to it. Today's first question comes from Renan Tchaikovsky, I think that's how you pronounce the surname, anyway, who asks them, why isn't Jaina in Draenor bloodlustily hunting down Garrosh along with Thrall? Well, actually I think the two of them would make a pretty cool dream team, going around kicking ass, but it doesn't really fit Jaina's current character. So let's just jump right back to the very start of Mists of Pandaria, and Garrosh dropped a mana bomb on her city. A mana bomb, by the way, is basically a nuke. He done gone did a Hiroshima on Theramore, which obviously made her rather salty because, just about everyone she loved kinda died. Not really a good start to anyone's day. So she spent a lot of Mists of Pandaria being pretty bloody pissed at the Horde, which honestly makes a lot of sense. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, Jaina, she's just crazy. Just kind of writing her off as, oh, she cray, or something like that. And, I always thought that was a little bit bizarre and kind of insulting in a way, because she was mad for a perfectly reasonable reason. And I'm not saying you think that, it's a point I wanted to make while I happen to be on the topic of Jaina. So anyway, we have a moderately pissed off Jaina, and then by the time 5.4 comes around, she is still rather unhappy at the whole situation, and just says to Varian, hey, how about we just, dismantle the Horde? That would be fun. To which Varian goes all, high and mighty and decides to not do. But then what happened in between Mists of Pandaria and Warlords was the novel, War Crimes. And basically in this novel, she was initially very, sort of torn with anger and stuff at the start. But as the novel went on, because of various events and things that happened and words that were said and things like that, she sort of found a little bit more peace in herself with whatever problems, she was going through with her head. So really, for her character, it doesn't make as much sense to be in a mad bloodlust at the minute, because the calming down process has kind of happened by the time that Warlords of Draenor occurs. And plus, I'd reckon that she's probably extremely busy when it comes to things at home. The Kirin Tor is probably still recovering from the whole purge thingy. She's just lost her city, so there's probably things to do there with refugees and stuff like that. And then also, I think from a very practical sense, it doesn't make much sense for Blizzard anyway to have both her and Khadgar be there, because if they want one character to be the kind of big, powerful mage, they're just going to put Khadgar there, and having Khadgar and Jaina, I think, would just take away from the whole thing. When you're telling a story in an MMO, and really just in games in general, you don't have that much space, both in terms of the actual game itself and then people's brain space, in a way. One of the big successes with this expansion is they've kept it to a small cast of characters that recur quite a lot. I think that overall Jaina would be a character that sure would be cool to see, but I don't think she would add that much, and I just don't think it would really be worth her being there. Now, of course, in future expansions, I'm sure she will play a very big role. Blizzard definitely seem committed to her being one of the main characters of the events that go on in Azeroth, so I'm sure whenever the Legion comes or Ashara gets super salty and rises out of the sea, that she'll be there on the front lines fighting things. So it's certainly not the end of her as a character. I just think that it A, makes sense for her to be in Azeroth, and B, it's convenient for Blizzard when they're just trying to streamline their story to the point where it's kind of easy for people to digest. So the next question is from Demorca Delilla, who asked, what about Sylvanas? I would like to deal with her in a new expansion. She is raising new undead, so for me she's evil, kind of like Arthas as the Lich King. Good question, and she is a character that a lot of people, again, are very interested in. And I suppose, like Jaina, she had a decent bit of character development in the War Crimes novel. Anyway, though, about the idea of her being a full expansion, I don't really think that would happen. You see, if you take, say, Northrend, right? Northrend was a new continent, and Arthas was kind of our motivation to go there. I don't think they could really do the same with Sylvanas. I mean, sure, there are some places in Northern Lordaeron which are not fleshed out in-game, but still, I don't think it's really enough to provide a full expansion's worth of content. Though, of course, they could totally just, have Kulturas appear and then just have, Sylvanas take it over or something like that. But I think that would be very messy, and it just doesn't feel right, Sylvanas being an entire expansion. Though what I think they could do, if they were going to go with some sort of arc which ended up with her being evil and then either being killed or redeemed, is to have it grow over a few patches and then culminate in a raid tier. So if you cast your mind back to the start of Mists of Pandaria, Garrosh started off being just very angry, very warlike, but not necessarily pure evil, if you think from the Horde perspective. It was all about capturing new lands and doing all that stuff. Whereas by the end of MoP, he was definitely a lot more evil. He was doing some pretty dark shit. So they could do a similar thing with Sylvanas, and then at the very end, you know, something big could happen. It could be a raid tier, who the hell knows. I'd say it could work out quite well, though. Imagine if we have an expansion going on in Azeroth that is maybe 3 raid tiers long. You could have the first raid tier be some sort of major story thing with either Naga or the Burning Legion. Then the middle raid tier could be a mixture of something and Sylvanas. And then the final raid tier could just be the end of that expansion storyline, with, of course, Sylvanas having some plot development from patch to patch to patch until the, end of whatever that storyline could be. So that could happen. I think what's more likely for Sylvanas is that her sister will return from all those portal gallivanting hijinks she's been having since Warcraft Beyond the Dark Portal. So yeah, she'll probably come back, then all the 3 sisters will get together, and I'd assume something will happen there that will lead to a lot of plot development. She's a well-liked character that I think just could have a lot more go on with her, rather than just her turn into a big bad and be killed. I think that would be a little bit of a waste. Well, maybe that could eventually happen, but I think we would definitely need 1 or 2 expansions of her being a good character for that to be kind of acceptable. Certainly, though, there's a lot of potential with that character, so I hope they really do manage to nail it. Next, we've got a question from Dominic Tomko, who asked, now that I've mentioned about Wrathion, where is he? That's a very good question. Just where the hell is Wrathion? Well, I can tell you where he was lore-wise a few days ago or a few months ago. He's actually somewhere in Draenor. We don't know where. Basically, there is a log in Admiral Taylor's garrison in the Spires of Iraq, and in this log, there is mention of Wrathion being there some time ago. He just passed through and then disappeared. Now, of course, we all know what happened to Admiral Taylor's garrison. It was taken over by a lich, and some bizarre hijinks happened. Though I find it very hard to believe that Wrathion would have anything to do with that. I don't think Wrathion's got any reason to hate Taylor or any of those people. Not that he really, not that killing them would actually help him or further his goals, but I don't think he would do it out of spite. That's not Wrathion's character. Wrathion's a complete sociopath. He just wants to save the planet of Azeroth. I just don't see how killing Taylor and friends actually helps with that. Now, where is he after that, though? Well, the answer is, we unfortunately just don't know. There is no real mention of it. All that Blizzard did is just hinted that he is somewhere in Draenor via that log entry, and they've said nothing else since. Though while Blizzard have given us no information, we can certainly speculate about it. So, what we do know about dragon-related forces on Draenor is that, of course, Kairos popped up there. He was involved with getting Garrosh onto the planet, and, well, as I'm sure we are all aware of by now, it didn't really go that well for Kairos. Kind of got stabbed in the back, and he is slightly dead at the minute. And he was also, of course, a friend, or at least, friend, air quotes, of Wrathion. So maybe Wrathion just popped into Draenor to see, well, what the hell happened to Kairos? What's going on there? And maybe he's just on his way home now. Maybe he's just, sitting back, being a dick to that bartender in the Vale of the Thingy Step thing of the place in Pandaland. Yes, that place. It's hard to know. I'm assuming right now that he just went back to checking Kairos and maybe advanced some sort of a plan, but now that that's failed, well, he's just left. My lore details are a little bit sketchy here, and basically I don't know 100% whether the whole get the Iron Horde to invade Azeroth thing was strictly Wrathion's plan, or if it was mainly Kairos' own plan. It seems to me like it was Kairos' plan, but if it was Wrathion's plan, then I suppose his initial thinking would have been, right, we'll get the Iron Hordes to wipe out Azeroth, and they'll be strong enough to defend the planet against the Burning Legion. I don't think that makes much sense, but what Wrathion would now see, if he goes to Draenor, is that we are successfully fighting the Iron Horde back, even though we're just a small expeditionary force. Therefore, his original logic would have failed, so he would have just went home and said, well, screw it. I suppose by creating this new conflict, I am making them a bit stronger anyway. That's what I think's going on with Wrathion. We'll probably find out more, I'd say in either the last patch of this expansion, or one of the early patches, or just the release of the next one. Okay, so with that question covered, it's time to do one from Daggernath. Now, this is actually a very big question. He asked, do you think we will have to fight the Warlords of Draenor timeline version of Medivh? During the beta, one of the Frostfire Ridge quests with Khadgar and Gul'dan, there was a shadowy night elf figure. Anyone who has done Karazhan or the Black Morass knows that Medivh is given a Night Elf skeleton and animation. Maybe in 6.2 or 6.3 he will be a boss. Alright, first of all, I did not know that about him having a Night Elf, like, animation set and skeleton. Interesting. But certainly, yeah, Medivh is an interesting chap. He's clearly very powerful, and there is a version of him on alternate universe Azeroth. We know this for a fact. What's very interesting, though, is that Medivh will probably try to contact the Iron Horde orcs while we are in combat with them, I suppose, because they're clearly not... Well, maybe they're in contact at the minute, maybe they're not. It all depends on who that shadowy figure is. Right, so if the shadowy figure isn't Medivh, then there's going to be something interesting when Medivh tries to contact the Iron Horde, and, you know, maybe they'll just say, oh, piss off, we're busy. Now, if Medivh is that shadowy figure, then it opens up a lot of possibilities. So, let's just talk about possibility one, and that's that he is actively working with Gul'dan. Obviously, this does make a lot of sense because shadowy Medivh, well, just Medivh in general, is of course possessed by the avatar of Sagaris, which is not too nice for him, and of course Sagaris has got a bit of a vested interest in anything that's related to the Burning Legion. That means that Gul'dan and Medivh could be working together and would be an extremely powerful enemy. I mean, you've got one of the most powerful wizard dudes, and I suppose one of the most powerful warlock dudes, being friends and wanting to kill us. Not that good. If they do work together, I'm sure that will probably lead into whatever the final big thing of Warlords of Draenor is. Blizzard have said a few times that there is going to be some sort of Legion-related surprise that we will hear about soon, as they said. I suppose it could be to do with these two characters. Now, of course, it was a shadowy Night Elf figure, which does maybe suggest that Medivh is just snooping on whatever the hell Gul'dan's doing. If this is the case, then it sort of suggests that this Medivh is working sort of for himself and that he's not really affiliated with Gul'dan. Now, what could that lead to? Well, honestly, it's impossible to know. Perhaps he's just there sort of doing some information gathering for Sagaris in case Sagaris is going to make some sort of final gambit near the end of the expansion. But honestly, I'm all out of ideas as far as this goes. So if you do have any ideas as to what this alternate timeline Medivh could be doing, then absolutely leave them down in the comments. And while I'm talking about the comments, also be sure to leave any questions that you might have down in the comments, because that is it for this episode of the Q&A. It was actually quite fun doing a lore one, so be sure to keep the questions coming in. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.